Hello everyone. My name is Carmen Lomba, and I work in a interlibrary loan service. This presentation is part of the work that Giovanna and I have been preparing for the training activities of the Hermes project. Giovanna works in Como in the Insubria University that is in the north of Italy. And I work in Santander in the University of Cantabria that is in the north coast of Spain, in the middle of the north coast by the Cantabrian Sea. I will talk in this presentation about instruments that I use for effective resource sharing. I will try to share with you my experience, my doubts, and my daily work, focusing in several questions. First, I will talk about checking the information that the patron gives us. As you know, sometimes it's necessary to interpret the citations, to correct, to complete them, the bibliographic data, in order to identify the source. I will focus in two aspects. Some identifiers, very well known by you, how to identify the precise journal title where the article is. Secondly, I will talk about where we look for the full text before requesting them to another libraries. First, of course, we look for it in our own holdings using our discovery tool. And after that, we look for them in open access, using some plugins and some academic search engines like Google Scholar, of course, and Base. But Google Scholar is the most used. And when we don't get the text in open access, when we don't get the text in open access is when we use the search platforms that the national and international union catalogs. I think that Phyllis will talk about union catalogs. Sometimes, as you know, ILL is not possible or is not the best choice. We will see that, and the doubts that I think that we all have. And finally, we can always ask to our colleagues, and we can count on their expertise. As you can see, it's not very exhaustive. The identifiers that we see in the slide are very well known by the librarians. But if the patron request has these identifiers, it saves us a lot of work. How many times we are not sure if the document is part of a monograph or journal or what. But if we have these identifiers, for example, the DOI or the ISSN, it's much easier to identify the kind of document and to look for it quickly and in a precise way. The digital object identifier is wonderful for us because it identifies the electronic document or resource in a precise way. As you know, the citations of the articles can appear in many bibliographies, web pages, web the articles can be cited in many ways and formats, but the DOI is a constant link to the server where the editor registers the physical location of the documents. It's an intermediate server where the editors must keep the information up to date. In this way, the problem of the volatility of the hyperlinks was solved. And we find the record of the provider with the complete bibliographic data. The journal, we can see here that the title is JAMA in Spanish, with the JAMA. The year, then all the bibliographic data, volume, issues, pages, and if the article is in open access, sometimes we can check it here. The DOI is also used to import information from the databases to our softwares of ILL. For example, Talaria used the DOI to import the fields of the bibliographic record. So there is a DOI resolver where you can type the DOI in this box, and it will go to the original record of the editor. But let's go back to the record. Something is lacks here. And this is the ISSN, the other identifier that is so useful for us, essential for our for identifying the journal, because sometimes on the web of the editors it's not so easy getting the ISSN. Sometimes it seems hide. Well, I don't want to see paranoid, but sometimes it's really not easy. We need the ISSN because the title can change along the time and the catalogs. Here, the title is an acronym, but it can appear in some bibliographies developed. It can appear abbreviated, mostly in the old sources. There are many versions of this journal in different languages, in different formats, and it has multitude of series. And there is a specific ISSN for everything. This is a mess. But when you find the good one, you can look for this journal easily in the catalogs. There are so many ISSNs that now there is another one, the ISSN L, that is like a link between all the ISSNs of the journal. But anyway, it's the ISSN of the printed version. So I use these platforms to find out about the journals, besides the catalogs, of course. ISSN the database is not free, neither Ulrich's web, but MIR is free and is an Spanish initiative of the University of Barcelona that collects data of scientific journals for their identification and analysis. I mentioned the ISBN. Well, I know that it's very obvious, but with the ISBN, if the title is in another language or in another alphabet and the transliterations varies, and when the title is not very specific or is very general, or the work is in several volumes. And fortunately, we have the ISBN, one for the complete work and another for every volume. So we can look for the volume easily in the catalogs. This is my little homage for the ISBN. I want to talk about the ALNet, because this is the most important platform in the Spanish language academic world. You can find here most journals in Spanish easily. You can see the description, the link to the web page, the table of contents, and even the contents are hosted in the ALNet, like in this example. So the full text can be available. The ALNet also describes, besides journals and articles, book chapters of works in collaboration, dissertations, conferences, especially in social science and humanities. This database has been made in a cooperative way between Ibero-American and Spanish librarians, including mine, and we are very proud. We think that is very good. It has been a very good job. And now let's talk about getting the documents. That is our main goal of our service. Well, what we'll do first is checking if the document is in my library using my discovery tool. Its name is Único, that means unique in English. Well, when years ago, was upon a time, the electronic journals were incorporated to our holdings, we had to check several unrelated and independent resources. But with these discovery tools, we find the resources of our library in a click. Like Google, we write the keywords in this box, and the program will search the contents of our catalog, our databases. We'll search also in abstracts and indexing resources and in open access collections. Once we have checked that the article is not in our subscriptions, we see if it's in open access. The open access movement has had a deep impact in our services. This is the classical definition of Peter Schober. That says that open access content means digital, online, free of charge, and free of most copyright and licensing restrictions. And what does it mean for us, ILL librarians? Well, it gives us the possibility, the ability to provide some texts to our patrons immediately and free of charge. We can send the patron the link or the document, but immediately. This is possible because open access texts are under Creative Commons licenses. A license is where the author establishes the conditions in which his or her work can be used. If the work is under Creative Commons, the license will always allow at least getting the document and read it, of course. The first icon, by, always appears. It's compulsory. The document must be attributed to its author. But the author can set some restrictions symbolized with these icons. if only appears by, this is the most open license. But if the patron, if another symbol appears, the patrons have to know the meaning, because these symbols condition what they can do with the text. Perhaps the patron can't transform the work, or they can't or can use the document for commercial uses, etc. But this is another story. We have provided the document, and he can read it. So we have to know how and where to find the text in open access. We have to be able to find them quickly and easily, as many of our patrons do, because many users know and get open access on their own, of course. And sometimes we have to decide if we send the documents or if we teach the patron how to get them as librarians. How can I know if the article is in open access? Well, we use the plugin and paywall. And paywall is a database that monitors open access journals, the gold journals, hybrid journals, and institutional and subject repositories. Among the sources that feed this database, we can mention Google Scholar, PubMed Central, Base, etc. So if you install this plugin in your browser, when there is a DOI in the screen, it shows you immediately if it's in open access. A lock appears in the screen. If the lock is green, the work is in a repository, and if you link the lock, you can get the full text. Of course, if the text has a Creative Commons license, because in the repositories there are documents copyrighted with embargoes, etc. The bronze articles, we are free to read them in the editor databases, but the editor can take them from this status when they want. So they can remove them when they want. Hybrid articles are published with APC, the article processing charge. And gold are published in gold journals, open access journals. Well, unfortunately, the lock is usually gray, which means that it's not available in open access. There is another plugin. Perhaps you know the old Copernio that now is called EndNote Click. It's free. It uses the databases of paywall. But the difference with paywall is that this also includes your journal subscriptions. When the plugin recognizes the IP of your university, it works. You can get the document. But if you are at home, I think that there is a way to get validated and use the EndNote Click for remote access also. to your subscriptions. In fact, now in my university, they are studying this tool in order to solve the problems of the validation at home, the remote access. EndNote's click stores the credentials in your browser. Well, so we look for open access using the plugins or plugins, and also academic search engines like Google Scholar and like Base. In Base, you can access the full text of the 60% of the index documents of this database. You can research using the DOI, the title, and as you can see at the record, it shows a content provider. And if you click then, it goes to the repository where the document is deposited by the author. Well, as we all know, there are circumstances when IFLA is not perhaps the best choice to get the document because it's not possible, or it's more expensive than buying the document, or we have to decide the best way, taking into account the type of document we're looking for, the circumstances, and our experience. The most common documents requested by our patrons are articles of electronic journals, and the electronic journals are subscribed under certain conditions established in the licenses that our library signs. The licenses are contracts that say what we can do with our electronic journals. So when we receive a request from another library, we must know what the license says about ILL. This is the clause of IFLA about ILL. What does it allow? It allows the lender use an electronic copy, deliver articles for the purpose of research and private study, deliver the articles via a secure electronic transmission. And in this case, the license says that the borrower must print a paper copy for the patron and delete the file. So we have to tell the borrower this condition when we send the material. Most important vendors have clauses about ILL, and they usually allow sharing the documents under certain conditions, and the most usual are this: delivering by a secure way, like Ariel, using paper or hard copies for the delivery, and delivering to non-commercial organizations or to libraries of the same country. And one doubt that we always have: if the license says nothing about IL, can we share this document? Well, I think that we can only do what is written in the license. But in the last meeting I attended, some colleagues said that no, that if the license says nothing, you can deliver it under certain conditions, the most usual conditions. I don't know. We are always working between the interpretations. we have many those always. So can we loan and borrow great literature? Well, literature are documents that are not published in the traditional and academic ways, like reports, standards, patents. These documents are produced by organizations that keep all the commercial rights, and these documents are under license. So, if the document would be published in a book or in a collected book, perhaps, but these documents are under license. But for example, another kind of documents that we don't loan are the tests, the psychological test or the behavioral test. They are under editor conditions, so we can't loan this kind of documents. But the rest of the documents, if we can, our will is to share as much as possible, to present the lowest possible barriers to share, only the necessary barriers. And the patent, well, let me show you the image of a patent applied by my father in 1961 about a fast and economical method for the recovery of residual mineral oils from industries. I'm very proud to show you the patent of my father. Well, the patents are public documents that protect inventions. So they are public documents and everyone can access to them once they are published. The best database for us is SpaceNet, where you will find the PDFs for each country in which the patent has been protected. Well, it's curious. I had no idea about this patent. It was applied before I was born. But a colleague of mine found it when she was preparing a training for our engineering students. And she told me, there's a patent of your father. And I didn't know it. So as you can imagine, my father didn't get rich with this patent. Where to get help? Well, with our colleagues, we use the mailing list. I suppose that you have a mailing list between the Turkish libraries, and your colleagues are willing to help you always. There's an international mailing list, DocDel, that is from IFLA, and of course the Receive initiative is there. And I want to finish with this workflow made by Giovanna that can be very illustrative of the process of our service. And thank you. That's a cool.